Imagine a quiet autumn morning in a fading North Carolina town where the air smells of coffee and fallen leaves. A man steps into a rundown diner, his face hidden under a worn cap, seeking nothing more than a moment of peace. But instead of a warm welcome, he's met with a sneer and a cruel jab. "You don't belong here, old-timer." The room chuckles, unaware they're mocking a legend. That man is Michael Jordan, basketball icon, American hero. And what unfolds next isn't just a tale of humiliation turned triumph. It's a story of a diner on the brink of collapse, a thief in plain sight, and a quiet act of kindness that changes everything. By the time the dust settles, jaws will drop, tears will fall, and a forgotten community will find its heartbeat again. This isn't about slam dunks or championships. It's about the power of one man's grace under fire. Stick around, because what happens in Maggie's diner will leave you stunned and inspired. It was a crisp October morning in 2025, the kind where the sun barely peeked through the gray clouds over rural North Carolina. Michael Jordan, now 62, drove his dusty pickup truck along a winding road toward his childhood roots in Wilmington. He wasn't here for fame or glory, just a quiet stop on a personal journey. His destination, Maggie's Diner, a weathered roadside joint he'd passed countless times as a kid. The sign out front flickered, half the neon letters burned out, but the promise of hot coffee drew him in. Jordan parked beside a rusted Chevy, pulled his gray hoodie tight, and tugged his cap low. At 6'6", he still cut an imposing figure, but years off the court had softened his spotlight. He wanted anonymity today, a chance to sip coffee and soak in memories of simpler times. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, greeted by the hum of an old jukebox playing Johnny Cash. Wooden booths lined the walls, their varnish chipped, and the air carried the faint scent of grease and nostalgia. A handful of regulars, mostly gray-haired locals in flannel, glanced up, then back to their plates. He slid into a corner booth, the vinyl seat creaking under his weight. A young server, Billy, strutted over, his apron stained and his smirk sharp. Maybe 25, with a buzz cut and a chip on his shoulder, Billy eyed Jordan like he was sizing up a stray dog. "What's it gonna be, old-timer?" he asked, his tone dripping with mockery. "Coffee's $2, but I reckon you're scraping pennies for that." Jordan didn't flinch. "Black coffee and toast," he said, voice steady, eyes on the menu. Billy snorted, loud enough for the room to hear. "Black coffee and toast? Big spender, huh? Don't trip over your wallet on the way out." A couple of old-timers chuckled, shaking their heads like it was a harmless jab. Jordan just nodded, unfazed, and took a slow breath. He'd faced worse. Trash talk on the court was an art form he'd mastered. But this felt different. Petty. Personal. Billy swaggered back to the counter, tossing a rag over his shoulder like he owned the place. Jordan watched him go, then let his gaze drift. Behind the counter stood Maggie, the diner's owner, a woman in her late 60s with silver hair pinned in a loose bun. Her hands trembled as she counted a thin stack of bills, her brow furrowed deep. She muttered something to Billy, who shrugged and turned away. Jordan's ears caught fragments. "Bank's calling again," and "can't keep this up." Maggie's diner, he realized, wasn't just old. It was dying. The coffee arrived, sloshing over the rim as Billy slammed the mug down. "Oops," he grinned, not bothering to wipe the spill. "Guess you're used to messes, huh?" Jordan met his eyes, calm as ever, and said, "Thanks, kid." Billy blinked, thrown off by the lack of a fight, then stalked off, muttering under his breath. Jordan sipped the bitter brew, letting the warmth settle him. He wasn't here to brawl with a punk. He was here to think. But something about Maggie's worried glance stuck with him. This place meant more than coffee and toast. It was a lifeline for someone. The jukebox switched to a mournful Patsy Cline tune as the morning dragged on. Jordan nursed his coffee, watching the diner's slow rhythm. A grizzled man in a Vietnam vet cap swapped stories with a woman knitting a scarf, regulars clinging to routine. Maggie shuffled between tables, her smile forced, her apron pockets jingling with loose change. Billy, meanwhile, prowled like a fox in a henhouse, his bravado growing with every smirk. He returned to Jordan's table, leaning in close. "Still here, huh? What's your deal, Grandpa? Lost your way to the bingo hall?" This time the jab landed harder. The vet looked up, frowning, and the knitter paused mid-stitch. Jordan set his mug down, meeting Billy's gaze. "Just enjoying the coffee," he said, voice low but firm. Billy laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Enjoying it? Man, you're cheap and slow. Bet you can't even tip." The room tensed. Maggie glanced over, wringing her hands. "Billy, enough," she called, her voice thin but sharp. Billy ignored her, crossing his arms. "What? This guy's a nobody, Maggie. Look at him. Beat-up hoodie, scuffed shoes, probably sleeping in that junker out front." The vet slammed his fork down. "Leave him be, kid. He's not hurting you." Billy spun around. "Mind your business, old man. This ain't your diner." Jordan stayed silent, but his mind raced. Billy wasn't just a jerk. He was a loose cannon, and Maggie's flinch told him more. She was scared, not just of losing the diner, but of this kid she couldn't control. He sipped his coffee again, letting the storm brew. Then he heard it, a muffled exchange at the counter. Maggie, near tears, whispered to Billy, "The bank called. We're out of time unless we get a miracle." Billy smirked, patting his pocket. "Miracles don't pay bills, Maggie. I'll handle it." Jordan's eyes narrowed. That pat wasn't casual. He'd seen it before. Guys on the streets hiding cash, thinking they were slick. Billy wasn't just mouthing off. He was up to something. Minutes later, a trucker dropped a 10 on the counter for his meal. Billy scooped it up, but instead of ringing it in, he slipped it into his jeans. Maggie didn't notice, too busy scrubbing a grill. Jordan's gut tightened. This wasn't a diner struggling to survive. It was being bled dry. Billy circled back, emboldened. "Time's up, pal. Pay and get out. We don't do charity." He tossed the check down, a crumpled scrap with a scribbled total. Jordan reached for his wallet, slow and deliberate, then slid a 20 across the table. Billy snatched it, smirking. "Wow, a whole 20. Don't spend it all in one place, loser." He pocketed the bill, no change, no receipt, and strutted off. The vet muttered, "Little punk," but Jordan just watched. He was piecing it together. Billy wasn't just rude, he was a thief, and Maggie was too desperate to see it. The door jingled as a new customer entered, a burly farmer in overalls. Billy greeted him with fake charm, but his hand darted to the tip jar when the farmer turned away. Jordan's jaw clenched. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about Maggie, the diner, and every soul holding on to this place. He could walk away, finish his coffee, and let it go. But that wasn't who he was. Not then, not now. The clock on the wall ticked past 10 a.m., its hands as worn as the diner itself. Jordan leaned back, his toast untouched, his mind sharp. Billy's taunts had shifted from annoyance to a challenge, one he couldn't ignore. The farmer's tip vanished into Billy's pocket, and Maggie's weary sigh echoed from the kitchen. This wasn't just a bad day at a diner. It was a slow-motion robbery, and Jordan was the only one seeing it clear. Billy swaggered over again, his confidence peaking. "What's wrong, old man? Too broke to order more, or just too dumb to leave?" The farmer looked up, annoyed, but Billy pressed on. Look at this guy, folks. Thinks he's hot stuff sitting here like he owns the place. Bet he's never done a real day's work. The knitter dropped her needles, glaring. That's enough, Billy. You're embarrassing yourself. Billy wheeled on her. Oh, shut it, Edna. You're all a bunch of fossils clinging to this dump. Maggie emerged from the kitchen, her face pale. Billy, stop it. He's a customer, same as anyone. Billy laughed, harsh and cold. Customer? This guy's a joke, Maggie. Look at him. Probably hasn't seen a paycheck since the 90s. The room froze. Jordan's cap shadowed his eyes, but a flicker of something, resolve, maybe anger, crossed his face. He stood, towering over Billy, and the diner held its breath. Kid, Jordan said, voice like gravel, you don't know a damn thing about me. Billy smirked, stepping closer. Oh, I know plenty. You're a washed-up nobody who can't even tip right. Get lost before I throw you out myself. The vet stood, fists balled. Try it, punk. I'll back him up. Billy hesitated, then doubled down. Fine, stay. But don't cry when you see the bill, Grandpa. Jordan didn't budge. He reached into his hoodie, pulling out a crumpled photo, a faded shot of him as a kid, standing outside this very diner with his dad. This place meant something once, he said, loud enough for all to hear. And you're killing it! Billy blinked, thrown off, but recovered fast. Boo-hoo, a sob story? Save it. This dump's done, and I'm not crying over it. That's when Maggie snapped. Billy, shut your mouth. You don't get it. This diner's all I've got left of Tom. Her voice cracked, and the room softened. Tom, Jordan remembered, her husband, a local coach who died years back. Billy rolled his eyes. Tom's gone, Maggie, and soon this place will be too, face it. He turned to Jordan, sneering. And you, tough guy, pay up or get out. Jordan locked eyes with him, then slowly pulled off his cap. The light caught his face, the jawline, the intensity, and gasps rippled through the diner. Edna dropped her yarn. The vet whispered, Holy hell! Billy froze, mouth agape. I'm Michael Jordan, he said, calm but commanding. And I'm not here to play your game. I'm here to save this one. The diner erupted. Shock, disbelief, awe. Maggie clutched the counter, tears welling. Billy stammered, You're lying! No way! Jordan stepped forward, holding up the photo. This was my dad's spot. Maggie fed us when we had nothing, and you're stealing from her. He pulled out his phone, replaying a clip he'd recorded. Billy slipping cash from the till, bragging to a buddy on a call. Maggie's clueless. I'm set for months. Billy's face drained of color. The farmer stood, furious. You little rat! That's my tip you took! Maggie sobbed. Billy, how could you? Jordan raised a hand, silencing the chaos. He's not the only one who's failed her. We all have, letting this place fade. But that ends now. The revelation hung heavy in Maggie's diner, thicker than the steam from the coffee pot. Billy stumbled back, his bravado shattered as Jordan's words sank in. The regulars, Edna, the vet, the farmer, stared, a mix of rage and hope flickering in their eyes. Maggie clung to the counter, her frail frame shaking. Michael, she whispered, voice trembling. Is it really you? Jordan nodded, softening. Yeah, Maggie. Been a long time. He turned to the room, his presence filling every corner. This diner isn't just wood and grease, it's a piece of us, and I won't let it die. He faced Billy, stern but steady. You've got a choice, kid. Own up or I call the cops. Your move. Billy's knees buckled. I didn't mean... He trailed off, then sank into a chair, head in hands. I needed the money. Rent, bills. I screwed up. The farmer scoffed. Screwed up? You robbed her blind?" Edna chimed in. "And mocked a legend while you were at it." Jordan waved them down. He's not wrong about needing money, but stealing's not the answer. Maggie wiped her eyes, stepping forward. "How much did you take, Billy?" He mumbled, "Couple hundred, maybe more." She shook her head, hurt cutting deeper than anger. "That was for the bank. They're taking this place next week." Jordan's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." He pulled out his wallet, sliding a card across the counter. "Call them. Tell them Michael Jordan's covering it. All of it." Maggie gasped. "Michael, no, I can't." He cut her off, gentle but firm. "You fed me and my dad when we were broke. Consider this payback." The room buzzed. Amazement, gratitude. Billy looked up, stunned. "Why help her after what I did?" Jordan met his gaze. "Because she's worth it, and maybe you are too, if you grow up." The vet clapped Jordan's shoulder. "Damn, MJ, you're still clutch." Edna nodded. "Always were." Jordan cracked a rare smile, then got serious. "Money's not enough. This place needs a soul again." He laid out a plan, fix the roof, repaint the walls, add a mini court out back for kids. "A diner and a dream," he said. "That's what Tom wanted, right, Maggie?" She nodded, tears spilling. He'd love that. Billy stood, hesitant. I'll help. For free. I owe you, Maggie." She studied him, then sighed. "Prove it." Jordan added, "Start by giving back what you took." Billy emptied his pockets. Crumpled bills and coins clattered onto the counter. The farmer grunted. Better late than never. Over the next month, Maggie's diner transformed. Jordan funded the overhaul, but the town pitched in. Paint rollers in hand, hammers swinging. Billy worked hardest, hauling lumber, scrubbing floors, his cocky grin replaced by quiet focus. Maggie baked pies for the crew, her spirit lifting with every laugh. Jordan oversaw it all, sleeves rolled up, a man of action, not words. November rolled in, crisp and golden, as Maggie's diner stood reborn. The neon sign glowed anew, the roof gleamed, and a small court out back echoed with kids' laughter. Opening day drew a crowd, locals, families, even a news van from Wilmington. Jordan stood beside Maggie, her arm linked in his, as she cut a ribbon with trembling hands. "Tom's smiling somewhere," she said, voice thick. Inside, the jukebox blared Chuck Berry, and the air buzzed with chatter. Edna knitted in her booth. The vet swapped war tales, and the farmer tipped big, right into a locked jar. Billy manned the counter, apron crisp, serving coffee with a shy smile. "On the house, sir," he told an old-timer, who nodded. "You're all right, kid." Jordan took the mic, the room hushing. "I came here for coffee, not a fight," he began, wry. "But I found something worth saving. Maggie's diner isn't just a building, it's a promise that no one's forgotten, no matter how tough times get." He paused, eyes sweeping the faces, worn, hopeful, alive. "I've won titles, but this is bigger, because it's ours." Maggie hugged him, sobbing. "You gave me my life back, Michael." He hugged her tight, whispering, "You gave me mine first." The crowd clapped, some wiping tears. Billy stepped up, nervous. "Mr. Jordan, I was a fool. You didn't have to give me a chance, but you did. I won't waste it." Jordan clasped his hand. "You're not a fool anymore. Keep proving it." A kid tugged Jordan's sleeve, holding a basketball. "Play with us, MJ?" He grinned. "One game." Outside, he dribbled on the new court, faking out a giggling 10-year-old before sinking a fadeaway. The crowd cheered, phones up, capturing a legend at peace. Back inside, Maggie served pie, her smile radiant. "Tom built this for community," she told Edna. "Michael brought it back." As dusk fell, Jordan slipped out, climbing into his truck. He glanced at the diner, lights warm, voices spilling into the night, and felt a weight lift. He'd faced Billy's venom, Maggie's despair, and turned it into something real. Driving off, he thought of his dad, of hard days, and whispered, "This one's for you." If Michael Jordan's story at Maggie's diner moved you, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more tales of grit, heart, and everyday heroes, because the world needs more of this, and so do you. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what's a small act of kindness you've seen lately? Share this video with your friends, your family, anyone who believes in second chances and the power of standing up for what's right. Together, we can keep the spirit of places like Maggie's alive, not just in North Carolina, but in every corner of America. Click the screen for another story that'll warm your soul, and let's keep inspiring each other one small step at a time. Because like MJ showed us, it's not about the spotlight, it's about the fight for what matters. Let me know where you're watching from. This story, Michael Jordan mocked at a small-town diner, not knowing he'd save it, is a work of fiction created for entertainment and inspiration. While inspired by Michael Jordan's legendary persona and values, the events, characters, and settings, including Maggie's diner, Billy, and the North Carolina town, are entirely imaginary and not based on real occurrences. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real places, is purely coincidental. We aim to honor Jordan's legacy through this tale, not to depict factual history. Enjoy it as a heartfelt narrative, not a documentary. Thanks you for watching.